Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Hope you guys have had a great week. This is the best day of the week for me, my favorite day of the week. I'm excited. We got some grades for the defensive players. We're going to go through those. Who shined? Some guys are stepping up. Some guys, I think they're taking the shackles off of them and they get to go roam and compete for a job after being kind of sequestered behind some guys that were entrenched as starters. It really brings new air to a team when there's open spots to be had. There's not a ton, and some of it's because Caleb Downs absorbed one, and a lot of guys came back. But still, there are a few spots that are competitive, and then there's a lot of backup rotation and jockeying going on to see who can start. If there's an injury this year or next year. So we're going to get into all that. As always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for being here. As always, it is great to have you, and it is our pleasure to be here. As always, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. You get an alert bell every time we go. We're generally going around 7 p.m. Unless something changes, but in general, that is pretty much locked in right now with the sports schedule. Football's gone, March Madness is gone, so 7 o'clock is pretty much the meta at this point. So we appreciate you guys. Shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. Shout out to my Southern Ohio boys. Might have to hit the river soon. It's been a little too long, so I'll holler at you guys when we get down there. Make sure you join at BuckeyeScoop.com, and you'll see when we head down there. It's always a great time. Arnold Thurman is always the host, and it is always the best steak in the entire world. So it's fun to get down there and see my Portsmouth, my Southern Ohio people. As always, gonna bring in my boy Nevadabuck. Nevada, the defense was lights out last year. It's going to be better this year. It's clearly more talented than it was last year. I think it's more athletic than last year. I think that this is as good of a defense as we've had, at least since 19. Now, obviously 19, when you're headlined by Chase Young and Okuda, you've got the number 2 and 3 pick in the draft. That's really top heavy. Again, that was a defense that should have won a national championship. But I think this defense has the components to be every bit as good, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on the defense where we stand before we start digging into some of the individual grades?
Well, the first thing you have to remember is that last year, the defense allowed 11.2 points per game, which when you looked at, that's just an absurd stat in modern college football. And it puts it right up there with some of the great defenses of all time at Ohio State. And this year's defense is going to be better. So, I'm putting the over-under at 11 for points in the regular season just because the postseason is going to be so arduous and, so many great games that you have to play. But I'm saying that we're going to give up less than 11 points in the regular season. I'd even be tempted to go below 10. I think that's how dominant the defense is going to be. But, the spring was a really interesting time for the defense because you had a couple of positions, as you mentioned. You had Lathan that was, kind of limited. They're trying to, hold him out, get him right for the fall. Cody Simon, same type of situation. So it really opened up the door for some of the young guys to step in and play. And, two of our biggest performers, two of our highest graded guys coming out of spring football were in those spots. And one was C.J. Hicks. C.J. Hicks was a guy that came in, to me, was a big question mark. And that's not a bad thing. I just had questions. I had, I've seen a lot of CJ in the 7-on-7 circuit. I've seen a lot of CJ in high school. Obviously, his measurables are great. He's a super freak athlete, but had not really done it on the field. And he turned it around this spring and had a great spring. Looked great in 2 linebacker sets. Looked great in 3 linebacker sets. Looked good blitzing. Looked good in pass coverage. Just had a really, really solid effort, and I think separated himself a little bit. And that's not a knock at Sonny Styles. That's not a knock at Gabe Powers, who's another one of my big movers up. But I just think CJ had a really, really good spring, consistent, and played well. And he's a guy that I'm looking forward to, for big things. One of the big questions that we answered in spring football. And a second was a name, probably not. I'm not sure how many people are familiar, less so than CJ, but was Jaden Bonsu, a guy that stepped in for Lathan, played and had a terrific spring. Played a lot at the safety spot, made a lot of plays, defended well on the ground, defended well in the air, made some interceptions, caused some turnovers, had some nice pass breakups. He's another guy that's going to play a lot. So I think for Ohio State came in with a lot of questions coming into the spring. We left with no injuries. We left with some questions answered, and we left with a defense taking another step forward in terms of coherence from year one under Knowles to year two under Knowles. This is now year three under Knowles. I expect them to take another step forward, and if they do, they literally are going into the rare air of all-time great college defenses at Ohio State, and I think that's what's going to be the case in 2024. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what these guys can do with the third year, obviously, of being in the system. I think a lot of these guys. I think the defensive staff is as strong as it's been. Again, I thought Perry Eliano we had high hopes for him, but for whatever reason, I've never understood why they moved him from a corners coach, his natural position, to safeties. Other than I'm sure Tim Walton, who's older, preferred to coach corners. That's what he's coached in the NFL. But Perry Eliano coached Sauce Gardner. He coached Kobe Bryant, who won the Thorpe Award a few years ago at Cincinnati under Luke Fickell, and they brought him in as a safeties coach. Didn't work out great, and I think that was something where Ryan is learning. If he wants to hand over the keys to a defensive coordinator and truly let him run the show, he's got to let him make some hires, and that's where Matt Garriani showed up. From Indiana. He was their DC last year, their play caller last year on defense, and all of a sudden he's back. He came in with Jim Knowles year one, went to Tulsa with Kevin Wilson for about 5 minutes, and then he went to Indiana last year to be their play caller under Tom Allen. Did a nice job against us, really. I mean, the first game of the year we played those guys, and their defense was good. They were sound. They had some really good players. They had a couple portal guys that were real good, and we didn't look like gangbusters at week one. Now we had a new quarterback, but I like this scheme against us. And I always love judging guys like him when they have inferior talent. Because Indiana has no chance to ever beat Ohio State. It's happened, like once in, 50 years. But I mean, he schemed us up and they hung in there a little bit. They were tough. They played hard. So it was good that we got him back as our safeties coach. And again, that's the guy that Jim Knowles trusts implicitly. And again, when Jim Knowles is looking forward from the linebacker depth, when he's running in the front seven, he needs the guy that he trusts in the back end, and that's Matt. So I think that was a huge hire. Then obviously the grand slam home run hire of the offseason for me, and I'm a total homer saying this. Obviously, Chip Kelly might be the best coordinator hire in the history of the school. But hiring James Laurinaitis as linebackers coach is going to do wonders. It's interesting because, when I've talked to recruits and people that handle recruits and are around recruits, they say, yeah, he's that guy. And it's hilarious that he makes, $350,000 and, he's going to be our Brian Hartline within 2 years. Hartline's making $1.6 million. James will be at that level in short order. I think he could be like the running game coordinator pretty quick here for the defense. But he's a dynamic recruiter on both sides of the ball. Again, he can talk to offensive guys, defensive guys. He's got as much cachet as Ryan Day because of his NFL career. And when these guys just walk the hallways in the Woody Hayes, they see the major trophies that James Laurinaitis won. They see that he was a 3-time All-American. They recognize him. Obviously, his dad was Animal from the Road Warriors. And he's got kind of a funny last name. So a lot of the kids, and if not the kids, the dads recognize him. And then when you meet him, he's a compelling dude. He's a smart guy, very, very good family guy. And again, he was one of the best. Him, like I said, him and AJ Hawk, two best teammates I ever had. And those guys were a different level of person and worker and guy that you'd want your son to be coached by. So I think that's exciting. And, again, CJ Hicks is a guy that, a lot of people, I think that the 5-star thing is almost unfair sometimes because kids, they expect every 5-star that shows up to campus to turn out like JJ Smith did. And JJ, who obviously went viral a bunch and looks like a mutant and is a monster, he put on big time, and he did it in scenarios where obviously he dominated All-American level players like Caleb Downs and Denzel Burke and Davison Igbinosun. But CJ had to wait his turn behind Steel Chambers, behind Tommy Eichenberg. And I know the feeling that CJ had and Gabe Powers and these guys is you get restless when there's only 2 spots and the 2 guys in front of you are good and you really have no chance of beating them out. It does suck. It is hard to keep your attention and your focus where it needs to be. But now all of a sudden that spot is wide open. And then you've got a monster and Sonny Styles right behind you. So you don't have a ton of margin for error. So that locked CJ in. And again, the way that they use CJ, from what I was told from the people I talked to that know those guys the best, very, very aggressive, very, very tactical, downhill blitzing. And then again, I think that that's smart. I think it's smart to get guys involved early, let them go hit the quarterback early, let them get after the passer early. And I think that that's truly what CJ Hicks is best at. And I think that, when he can be a tone setter and be moving forward, run, blitz him, get him involved in the pass rush, I think that that's where he's at his best, and let Cody Simon drop. But just my opinion. And I think that when he does blitz, he brings the wood, because not every blitzer is created equal. Because to be a blitzer, you have to understand it's not just like a video game on Madden where you just run the guy into the guard or the center and you hope that he gets around him. Like in real life, to run into a guy that weighs like 310 pounds, like Donnie Jackson, or one of our big guards, like you've got to be a little off. Like you got to be like Schlegel was really good at it. AJ was usually more of a rapper. AJ wasn't a finesse guy, but he was usually the guy that was finishing the plays. But Schlegel had to be like the hammer that had to go run into the guy and eat up the blocks. And that's the hard part. And CJ was doing that, and he was hammering our guys this spring. So I'm really excited to see about his development. Nevada, here's some other guys that you heard when you talked to your person that thrived and had high grades this spring.
Well, a defensive lineman that's worthy of note is Caden McDonald. He's a guy that really came on, really good player, extremely long arms, which makes him very difficult to block. I think he's like 6'6", 305 or something, that with like a 7-foot wingspan or something crazy like that. And yourself how difficult it is to block those guys that have those really long arms, and they can control you from afar and don't allow you to get into their body. And very, very effective, very, very strong guy. Really a handful for the offensive lineman to handle, and a guy that I think's got a really bright future. I think when he saw some of those second team or third team defensive line going in there and dominating and doing things, Caden McDonald was always in the mix of that, and he's a guy that I would absolutely look out for. I know they're going to be rotating more guys this year, having quality backups like Caden is a big part of the reason. And I think he's somebody that we're definitely going to keep an eye on. Like not an unknown name, but I'm just going to have to just call him out just because I think he probably graded out the highest, or amongst the highest of everybody this spring, was Davison. And you saw it in the spring game. I mean, he is gone. He's put on weight. He's gained strength. He's gained speed, and he's a true lockdown corner now. And it's really given Ohio State a lot of flexibility in terms of when they can run Denzel and Davison and Jordan Hancock out there, because they can lock up these 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. When you've got Caleb Downs out there with 4 true legit cover guys, like number 1 capable wide side cover guys, and they can trail guys all over the field. But Davison just had an absolutely magnificent spring. As good as he was last year, gonna be better this year. And I really think he's kind of taking. You always look for those guys that take it from really good to great. I think Davison has taken that step. I think he's taken the step from really good to great, and I think he's going to be one of the leaders of a very, I would say, very good, but not be a great Ohio State defense in 2024. And I can't wait to see him on the field.
Yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. Davison's the guy that is kind of your dream transfer portal ad in terms of how he assimilated with the team. Plays with a ton of energy. He bounces around. The guys I talked to love him. He came in right away. And you worry about the bonus babies. They get a little chunk of change. Are they going to act like morons or not? And he didn't. He was a worker. He was hungry. He came, took a spot. Allowed Jordan Hancock to play nickel last year, which I thought dramatically improved our defense. Having 3 really good corners on the field that were physical. And I think that he's a guy that this could be his last year. He's a guy who's that good. And again, our corners need to get back to being 3 and out guys. And as much as I love them being here, when you get 3 and out corners, that means that they're lockdown guys, they're first round picks, and We had a nice run for a while, and it kind of went away for a little bit, and we need to get back to that. And I think that he's going to be one. I think he could be better than Denzel. I mean he's longer. I like the taller, lanky cornerbacks because they match up against the bigger receivers. But I love everything about his attitude. And you look at that secondary. Assuming Lathan can become 100% healthy and stay healthy, that's as good of a secondary as we've had in a really long time, led by Caleb Downs, which is funny. I say led by the true sophomore. Nevada, your thoughts on Caleb Downs this spring? Because, you mentioned Jaden Bonsu. Jaden Bonsu is a kid I think a lot of people had written off and thought he'd move to linebacker. But he had the opportunity of a lifetime with Lathan being down the whole spring. There's no point in wasting Lathan when he's dinged up. And then Malik Hartford had shoulder surgery. So, you're down to Jaden Bonsu. And again, this is one of those opportunities that everybody prays for. Everybody wants to run with the ones. And there's some guys this spring that got elevated with the ones that didn't do so hot, notably on offense. And then there's some guys that got elevated like Jaden Bonsu, who proved that he can run with the ones and it doesn't look bad. Like it looks really good. And again, I think that that gets the coach's attention more than anything, that a guy is not wide-eyed when all of a sudden he's in that first huddle. Because when you're going against the threes, it's, you're going against walk-ons, you're going against freshmen, everything's way slower. But when you go up to against the ones, man, you're going against, a Mecca, and you're going against, Cardell, and you're going against JJ. And I mean, it's a whole different ball of wax. Obviously Trey Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. It's a different level. It's a different world. And I'm just, I'm excited for Jaden. But your thoughts on Caleb Downs this first spring? Because I think he is the reason why I love NIL. Obviously him and Quinshon. I mean, you get those guys, and those are guys that we never could have got, and now they're here, and what a difference it makes.
Yeah, I mean, when you return, let's talk just about Davison for a second. I'll dovetail into Caleb. I mean, one of the great things about Davison was that he was always going to be a multi-year transfer. Those one-year transfers are great, but those ones that you get for multi-years are, absolutely magnificent. And, Davison, as good as he was the first year, is going to be, markedly better as second. Well, that's what's so exciting about Caleb Downs. You're talking about a guy that was a second-team All-American as a freshman. And so we're going to have him, by definition, at least 2 more seasons at Ohio State. And he stepped right in. He's as good as advertised. And, he came in with such high expectations of him, and he's lived up to every one of them. Just a guy that's, he's got that natural nose for the ball, where he goes out there and just finds it, always around, always making plays. There's some videos out of him getting beat, like, on a perfectly thrown ball to a Mecca or something to JD. Yeah, that's going to happen. Man, he's a real good player. And, in this defense, when you have a player like that fills a spot that was open, and the open spot goes from question mark to maybe the best defensive player in America. It's hard for me to hide my excitement about how good this defense can be, and how epically challenging it's going to be for teams to move the ball against us. But no, he was everything that we wanted him to be. That fits in great the other guys, no problems, no attitude, nothing but hard work, and a guy that's, like you said, is going to be here for 2 years, which is just, it's fantastic to think about. But this year he will be the leader, even though he's a sophomore. He'll be the leader of a great Ohio State defense, and gives us so much flexibility when you have a guy like that back there. But he's been every bit as good as advertised.
Yeah, I think like the depth. The thing that is stunning to me is the depth, and we haven't had the exodus. And again, I know there's still a couple of weeks left, 10 days or whatever left in the portal being open, but we didn't have a bunch of guys jumping. We had Seth Hawkins jump in. I mean, he was buried. Obviously, didn't get anywhere near the burn that he was anticipating, hoping for. But I think that again, there's a lot of guys that are, do I want to jump off the freight train that's going to go to the national championship this year and go to, Buffalo or Florida Atlantic or something and play versus be a part of a team that could be truly special? I don't know. I'd go win a natty, and this team could easily do that. The linebackers are really interesting because I think Gabe Powers is going to be a guy that's going to play a big role in this team. And people call me crazy, but I mean, I've never been more, I guess, zeroed in on depth players than right now. When I realized we could play 17 games this season, I was like, I don't think people realize what that is, what that's like, how hard that is. I mean, the season is long. I mean, a lot of you guys are Browns fans. I mean, how many offensive tackles did you guys go through last year? How many quarterbacks did you guys go through last year? Running backs did you guys go? I mean, that's what we're facing. I mean, it's a physical game. It's a tough game. There's going to be guys that get dinged and hurt, and guys are going to have to step up. It's a physical sport, playing football, and you need every guy you can get. I think that we'll do an offensive show tomorrow, but there's some guys that some depth guys on the O line that are stepping up, and on the D line. I really I'm intrigued by Caden McDonald because I think two of the big questions I think that Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson had coming into spring is who is the third D tackle and who's the third D end. When you've got to rotate guys, is that third guy, is it still Hero Canoe? Is it is it Jay Moore? Is it Will Smith Jr.'s flash? I mean, God bless Will Smith Jr. I'd love for him to do something this year. Or is it Caden McDonald? Caden McDonald's a totally different animal because he's so big. I mean, he's 330, blew up Luke McDonald Luke Montgomery, not McDonald. Luke Montgomery caused a safety. It was ugly. That's like one of those ones where when you're offensive lineman and you're on the 1 yard line, you're like, please don't run right behind me, please. And then it's like, and then especially when they don't double team a guy who's 340 and he gets under you and just puts you on your butt and tackles the running back in the end zone. Like that's literally like your nightmare scenario. And Caden McDonald is the kind of guy that is a nightmare. Because again, those big, heavy guys, the funny thing about D tackles is like, you'll see some of these guys, and I remember it was like this in the NFL. I see some of these guys and they just look like these big fat blobs. And you're like, these guys probably can't even cross the street without having a heart attack. And then all of a sudden they get in a stance and they're all twitched up and they can run and they're explosive. And you're just like, you have no idea how that's even possible. Because like you'll see these guys, you look like Big Dumpy, looks like, Norbit or the Nutty Professor or some big fat dude, Yokozuna. And then all of a sudden he gets in a stance and he comes off the rock and it is like very, very terrifying. And again, those are the guys that make a fortune in the league because you can't, if you're you can't just lift weights and do drills to have that natural twitch. That's God given. And some of these guys got it. And when you find those guys, they get paid and they're really good. And Caden McDonald is one of those guys. And again, his biggest issue, literally going forward, is the spoon and the fork. Like if he can keep the spoon down and keep the fork down and just limit himself to one triple smash bacon burger and not 7, then we'll be in business. Because that's the guy, he's a weight guy. I've seen the weight guys. The weight guys will go home for the weekend and gain 35 pounds. I don't know how, but I've seen it. You just got to stay on him. But with him, the sky's the limit. And at the ends, it'll be interesting between Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson. Who's the third guy? If they got to spell Jack or JT, who's the third guy? Because again, they have to spell these guys. And again, I know that Jack and JT are going to be obsessed with getting sacks this year because they want to leave as All-Americans. They want to leave as first-round picks, and you can't have like 4 sacks and be an All-American in modern college football. So they're going to want to play every play, but they have to have a long-term trajectory and look at things, especially when you're playing the preseason, you're playing Akron, Western Michigan. Like those guys should be done by the third quarter. And they should be playing the backups. I pray to God Ryan hears this and plays the backups because you have to look at the long term and this playoff is going to be the hardest thing in the history of college football because the way that the Big Ten, of course, the Big Ten makes it way harder now. So we got to play Oregon or a real team in the championship. We don't get to play Iowa or Purdue anymore, Northwestern. And then you got to go play you have to play either 2 or 3 playoff games against the best teams in the country. And it is going to be just an absolute monster. Nevada, we got some super chats. Any final thoughts as we talk about some of the great stuff?
Yeah, now I want to make sure that, well, first I want to correct one thing. I was giving the measurements on Jason Moore, not McDonald. Jason Moore is 6'6", 305. you had the right ones on McDonald. But second question, and this is a question: isn't the playoff is like 4 games if you play in the first round, and 3 if you get a bye, right? Not 3 and 2,
Or it's 12 teams, right?
right?
So there it's okay. Yeah, you're right. So it is 4 games. Yeah, that's how you're getting to 17. You're right. 12 regular
Yeah.
season, Big Ten's 13, and the 4, so 17. Yeah, it's no matter what. I mean,
That's obscene though, Kirk. I
yeah,
mean, that's just
ending with Michigan, and then having to play Oregon again in the Big Ten championship, and then 4 playoff games. Yeah, I mean, I would assume, just being me and being Mr. Schedule guy, that we're gonna have a bye. I mean, but if we don't have a bye,
sure.
then buckle up. It's like you better. I mean, there's never been a time in the universe where a bye is like more important than this thing, because not only can you not lose during the bye week, but you can actually get some of your guys healthy and get them back, because these guys are going to be beat to tar, man, by the end of the season, man. It's going to be. I mean, these guys are going to barely be able to walk, and then they're going to have to play another 4 games, and college football's tough because guys are big. This is one AA is great and everything, but the guys in major college are just way bigger, way faster, way more violent, and the guys are hurting way more. And then it goes up another level when you go to the NFL. Yeah, so we could hit some super chats. Shof, what's up, my man? Appreciate you being ultra member. Thanks for the deuce. How do you think teams like Oregon will do in the Big Ten? I think Oregon is going to be the second best team in the Big Ten this year. I think Oregon is outstanding. I think that they, I said when NIL was coming, Oregon's going to be a team to watch. And of course, like usual, I'm right. Oregon is really tough. They were favored against Washington when they played in the Pac-12 championship last year. They lost to Washington twice, or else they probably would have made the playoffs and probably would have went to the national championship and beat Texas. But I love what they do on offense. I think that their head coach is a rising star. I don't know if they have the bodies, but I mean, the thing is there's always this thing about Oregon not being physical. But the last time they were in the shoe, they beat the dog trash out of us, and it was shocking. I was shocked at how, and it was CJ Stroud threw for 800,000 yards or whatever that day, but we couldn't stop them on the ground. I mean, we could not stop those guys. So, our defense, I mean, that was like the beginning of the end for Kerry Combs when I went down. And also, I think Ryan Day panicked that day. Some of the play calls he was making weren't hot, and he was repeating stuff, and he was frantic on the sideline. And I remember it was right in front of my eyes, and I talked to people, and they're like, yeah, he panicked bad. But he's got, that was in 21, so we're up to 24. So he's got 3 years under his belt. I think Oregon's going to be really good. SC, I have no idea. I mean, a lot of people thought SC would be good last year when they had the returning Heisman winner, and their defense was so atrocious that they just they weren't competitive. UCLA is going to be. I think UCLA is going to be a dumpster fire. I think Deshaun Foster's I think he's going to be a terrible hire. And again, I have nothing against him, but promoting a running backs coach to your head coach is idiotic, and it never works. It'll be like Stan Drayton, the West Coast version. And UCLA, it's not easy to win there. They have no fan support. They have no NIL. So it's kind of a fading star. And Washington will be interesting with Jedd Fisch, just because they went to the national championship last year. Sleeping giant, very, very difficult home field advantage, hard place to play at. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, you're a West Coast guy. You're a UCLA season ticket holder. Your thoughts on the newbies coming and joining the Big Ten?
Yeah, I completely UCLA circling the drain and heading downward. I think USC is actually going to be better this year, but certainly not juggernaut. But I think they're going to get better, and I think they're actually going to get better in the transfer portal. I think they're going to get some of the kids from UCLA, and then you've got Oregon. Oregon's a top 4 team in my opinion, and Oregon's really, really good. And I liked their portal ads. I thought they were super aggressive in terms of going after guys, going after transfers, and I think they're going to be super formidable. And as you said, people want to bag on Oregon. Oh, they're not. They're soft. They're those Oregon folks. Man, they didn't look soft when they came into the shoe and beat the stuffing out of us. So I know that's the popular narrative, and that's it's cool to say that. But man, it was in Columbus. It was a Saturday morning game for them, the noon start, which has usually been the Death Star for teams from the West Coast. and they came in and just could have named their score on us. They could have scored 100 if that game would have kept going on. And yeah, all the passing yards and the rolls didn't help us out one bit because they owned us that day. And no repeats this year, that's for sure.
Well, and that's why like I don't gamble because like that was one where all of the stars were aligning for the Buckeyes to escape and get a win. Kayvon Thibodeau, who went top 10 in the draft, was out, the best D end in the country that year. Flo, their really good linebacker, was out. It was crazy, and I'm sitting there and I'm just like, wow, we're this lucky that Kayvon Thibodeau's not playing, and he was a force. I mean, he's a Pro Bowl level D end in the NFL, and we dodged him, and they still just smashed us. And again, I remember they ran the same like 3 plays for about 180 yards and like 3 touchdowns, and it was shocking because when you look at the talent discrepancy between us and Oregon that year, like we had C.J. Stroud and Heisman finalist quarterback, and Marvin didn't even play that year. That was still the olden day. That was Garrett and Olave. So I mean, go back and look at that roster and be like, and then go look at who Oregon had on their team and be like, how did we lose with the talent variance we had? But our defense was a quagmire, and again, that's why as Nevada says, coaching matters in college football. And so all of a sudden, Kerry comes, who I worked with Kerry. Nice guy. He's an energy guy. For the college level, I don't think he's a great tactician. He's never called a defense in his life. So I thought hiring him to call your defense at Ohio State is a little bit of a risk, as in it's completely insane. And Ryan, had to face the heat after what I thought was a terrible hire. And again, that was a guy that Urban demoted, and then he hired over multiple times, and he finally just left and went to Tennessee, and then Ryan brought him back. So, but Jim Knowles was the exact opposite. Jim Knowles is a guy that started from the bottom, worked his way up. Guys like Jim Knowles are guys that I really respect because he made a team like Duke good on defense, and Duke stinks. And nobody, there isn't a kid in this world that grew up as a little kid saying, you know what I want to do? I want to play football at Duke. I mean, even if your dad played at Duke, you don't want to play at Duke. You want to play at Clemson or Florida State or Miami or Georgia or something. You don't want to play at Duke. But he made Duke football good on defense, which is something. Then he was really good at Oklahoma State. Now he's here, year 3 of the system. I think it's going to be exciting to see what he can do. Because I think he's going to have to win the game for us out at Oregon. Because I think that they're going to be juiced. That offense is going to be humming, and we're going to need the defense to smash them and punch them in the face. So I'm excited about that. Lord Vader Kush, I love the name. Each and every time I read it, it's awesome. Thank you for the 5. Every great defense has a nickname. I think this one should be the Freak Show. Also would make a great shirt. Shout out to you guys. Nevada OH. Nevada, if you had to nickname the defense, if you were tasked by Gene Smith on his way out the door for him to put your sign back up, that's in the landfill in Greater Columbus, it's sitting in the landfill, the Nevadabuck Tennis Center, for him to put the sign back up, you have to come up with a nickname. What is the nickname you're calling it?
11 Mighty Rudies.
11 Mighty Rudies.
A tribute to Gene Smith being replaced by Rudy Rudiger, which happened mid-70s. Rudy Rudiger came out there to replace Gene Smith. So 11 Mighty Rudies.
I still don't believe that. That really happened.
That absolutely happened. I'm telling you, he was the one he was replaced. Rudy Rudiger, he replaced him. I'm just telling you. Do you believe me or not? But okay, if we're not going to go with 11 Mighty Rudies, which would be one of my favorite ones, we need a good name for the defense. I would steal one of my favorite names, and this was my favorite name for a player. But we could do the Abusement Park. I like that. The Abusement Park is that one's kind of fun.
Like Mike Mitchell, the Abusement Park.
I love Mike Mitchell's nickname. That was the greatest nickname. The Abusement Park. Come on, that's awesome. It's better than Burke. I mean, come on.
Oh, of course.
The 12 Mighty Burks.
What if we just called the defense the Buckeye Scoops? Would,
The
you think that would
Buckeye
catch on? Would that catch on with the athletic department? You think? You
11
said
little
that, right?
scoops. They could hand out little
11 little
scoops,
scoops. I don't know.
11
Well, I mean,
little
they
scoops.
like DeForest Buckner, who's one of the best players in the NFL, D tackle. Like he does like the little gravedigger thing when he gets the sack. So I mean, it's kind of like a scoop.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
I think what do we call him, the
Tito
master.
Ortiz. I was watching the Tito Ortiz Chael Sonnen fight today, and I saw him do the little gravedigger thing at the end of it. So
No, that was Shamrock. He didn't beat he
no,
didn't beat Chael Sonnen.
he
He
did.
beat
Yeah,
he beat Chael Sonnen. Did he really?
he choked him out. Yeah, choked him out.
What? When?
I
Were
don't know.
they
I watched
old?
it. I was watching it, and they saw an old press conference where he was like insulting Tito's ex-wife, and then I was like, wow, I wonder how that fight went, because I didn't know. And then I googled the fight and I watched the fight. Yeah,
I
choked him
never
out.
knew he beat Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen used to be that
Yeah,
guy
yeah,
back
he
in the
choked him out
day.
in the first round.
In the
Rear naked
first
choke.
round? Was
Yeah,
it
yeah.
UFC? Was it UFC? Or was it like
Um,
some weird
I,
promotion?
I honestly, I don't remember. It was Big John McCarthy was the referee, but I don't know if that was early UFC or if it was another promotion. But it was Chael Sonnen and Tito Ortiz. Yep, Googleable.
Yeah, 'cause I remember when he did the grave digger thing on Ken Shamrock. Those guys hated each other. Oh my
Yeah, oh
god.
yeah, yeah.
Um, the Blues, thank you for the 5. Oh my god, you're logical Wolverine here. Had a conversation with someone about significance of Tony Alford at Michigan is more in a more run-oriented offense. Thoughts? I mean, I don't know. Like the running backs coach isn't, like he tells this guy to go hit the A gap or the B gap or press the hole or how to pass block. I don't think Tony's going to make much of a difference at all. I mean, again, I think he's insane for leaving Ohio State. But again, he knew his time was up. And again, I wouldn't have a bone to pick with Tony at all if he didn't go to Michigan. But again, I thought that was just terrible how he handled stuff. But again, it's a new time, and again, some people are ratchets, and it was a ratchet move, and he knows it was a ratchet move. But it is what it is. Nevada, your thoughts? Do you think Tony Alford will have more significance in Michigan in a more run-oriented offense? Because again, Michigan is going to have to run the ball. Because I mean, they don't have. I mean, they got a new quarterback they're going to have to protect. They got a new line they got to protect. So you can't have those guys throwing the ball 70 times and you get a bunch of guys that can't pass block. But your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I was having this discussion with Funky Buck today, and we were discussing the Michigan defense, and somebody was talking about, one of the national broadcasters was talking about how the Michigan defense is going to be good, and I'm like, look, there's a couple of we started breaking it down, and we're like, one, if JJ McCarthy really was that transcendent talent, then he's going to be a huge loss on that Michigan, much bigger loss on that Michigan offense than we thought. One. Two, they're losing their entire offensive line. Three, they're losing Corum. And so, the players play and coaches coach. And in terms of guys having an impact, the running back coach has the least impact of anybody. And
Yeah.
I just don't, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Mean, but I never thought Tony Alford was any good at Ohio State. So will he be magically better at Michigan? I don't think I don't think it's going to make him worse. I just think he's just going to be a non-factor. I think what's going to make Michigan worse is moving from JJ McCarthy to Orgy, losing 5 offensive linemen, losing their entire offensive staff, and this wasn't part of the question, but ... Well, then your defense is going to suffer, because part of the reason why that defense put up those gaudy stats was because the offense used to run the ball and possess it for such long periods of time and keep it away from the other teams. And you know that better than anybody. You played under Tressel Ball, which was the master of complementary offense and special teams to defense. And you're not going to have that this year. They're going to really struggle on offense, which means they're really going to struggle on defense. And I think and no, Tony Alford can't save them.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like that's the thing that I think people are glossing over when people say, "Oh, Michigan's defense is going to be amazing." I'm like, well, okay, I think their best defense was their running game last year. Their running game, their offensive line. JJ McCarthy was just quick enough to be an asset. Again, like when Michigan needed it the most, JJ McCarthy would scramble, he would convert. He had that crazy throw across the field, across his body when he was run out of bounds to convert. He ran it in the end zone in the horseshoe. When they needed it the most, he could scramble and get them out of stuff. But I think that, like, my last year, '07, we were number one in the entire nation in total defense. And a big reason why was because we ran the ball with Beanie and possessed the clock. I mean, we were a ground control team. We weren't high flying like in '06 when we had Teddy and Troy, and it was, the aerial assault every single Saturday. It was like, we got to grind it. Because again, we had new linemen. We had we had a couple new starters. We had a new starting quarterback you had to protect in Todd Beckman. And again, it's not because it was Todd Beckman. This is because any coach with a brain starting a brand new quarterback who doesn't have a ton of experience is gonna, you got to protect them. You can't say, hey, we're gonna go out and fling it around like your Troy Smith, who was a 3-year starter. That's just kind of the natural progression. Because as the year went on, we played at Penn State and Todd was throwing it all over the place, dropping dimes. But to start the year off, we were mashing people, and it's hard to mash people when you're replacing 5 offensive linemen. Again, I haven't seen that almost ever in college football, and to replace the whole line and JJ McCarthy. And again, I think I don't see it with JJ McCarthy. And it's not that I'm a hater. Like, again, he's a kid that he grew up wanting to be a Buckeye. That was a miss by Ryan Day, switching to Kyle McCord instead of JJ McCarthy. I mean, JJ McCarthy is about to be a top 5 pick. Kyle McCord's about to play at Syracuse. Probably won't get drafted next year. So that was a whiff by us. But, I still, even if everyone in the world is telling me JJ is going to be a top 10 pick, top 5 pick, whatever, I don't see it. So we'll see. And again, this is not being a hater. Now, Chad Henne, when I played against Chad Henne, I was like, he's really good. And he played 15 years in the league. He had a cannon for an arm. And, when he was dropping back, man, I was like, please don't throw it to Manningham because, throw it over our heads. Because, they were good. And Henne, I thought Henne was much better than JJ McCarthy. But he wasn't obviously as mobile. And again, never really did a huge amount as a starter. But, he was all right in some spots. And again, he stuck around and won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs and went off into the sunset. But in college, he was really good. Nevada, what are your thoughts on JJ? Because again, I've never seen it, and I know that every day I watch a mock draft, and he's up to 3 in the draft or 4 in the draft, or this team's going to trade up and mortgage their entire future to get JJ McCarthy. And I'm just like, isn't that the kind of guy that gets GMs fired?
Yeah, the latest mocks I've seen had him dropping out of the top 10. And I think that's right. Frank, I don't think he's a first-round pick. And it was funny because that was my view, and I expressed that to Colin Cowherd earlier in the year, and he was like, Nevada, you're completely wrong on this. Like, he will be in the first round. He'll probably be in the first half of the first round. And I literally thought Colin had lost his mind. I was just like, I could not disagree with you more. Colin, how could you say that? What a bad thing. He's like, I'm just telling you, it's going to happen. So he was right. I was wrong. Now he wasn't signing off on him in terms of as a player. He was just saying this is how the NFL views him and how NFL GMs view this stuff. But no, I'm totally with you. I've said this many times. Some of my favorite players of all time were Michigan guys. I think I can be pretty dispassionate about Michigan players. I do not see it in J.J. McCarthy. I thought this was a guy who was really, really bad when under pressure. I mean, every quarterback's bad under pressure, but I thought he was really bad. And the NFL's, you're only under pressure. You never get a clean pocket. And I think he's going to struggle mightily. But as long as one of my teams, as long as the Browns or the Packers don't take him, I'm happy. And I don't think the Packers are going to take another quarterback, even though because of the Packers, you just never know. But hopefully it goes to the Bears or the Vikings or some team I could really root against, and I get to see him play twice a year, and that would make me happy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hilarious. Kevin Newby, thanks for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for being on here with us, as always. With massive advances in modern analytics, 1 to 10, Nevada. How surprised are we that Brian Hartline went 0 for 4 in the 2022 wide receiver recruiting class? I mean,
who was in that class?
I think that was like Kerryon and Caleb and all the guys that are transferring out. They're not all transferring out, but it's just like that was the class that was between like the 2 stud classes. That was the class that was when they had they had Innocent Tate
Co-
last year. And then the year before they had
Co-
Marvin
Co-
and
Co- Kojo Antwi
yeah,
and
yeah.
guys like
They
that.
had, Caleb Brown, who's gone, obviously. Kojo Antwi. Um, oh God, yeah. This is a wolf. Who's the other one? Kirion Graves. And again, like the book's not closed on Kirion these guys, but I mean, you got Caleb Burton, Caleb Brown, Kirion Graves, and Kojo Antwi. So I mean, obviously Kirion's still here. He had a nice spring, but again, they're literally in the best position group room in the history of college football right now. Like, there's never been anything like this ever. Like, not the prime Miami Hurricanes when they had like Ray Lewis and Sapp and I mean, there's never been anything like this. Not the Hurricanes when they had Winslow and Shockey and Gerald Everett and they had all those good types. I mean, literally every single guy that comes out of this room is a first round pick, and even Jama, who transferred to Bama, was a first round pick. So I mean, I think it's kind of a victim of circumstance. I mean, this class was very, very wolf. I mean, I'm looking at it. I mean, obviously CJ Hicks, Sonny Styles were at the top of it. Tegra, he's got a lot of work to do. Devin Brown, obviously, could be our starting quarterback this year. Kirion Graves, Caleb Burton, Omari Abor is already out of there. He was an absolute turd. Caleb Brown, Kenyatta Jackson is a kid that this is a big year for Kenyatta. Big year for Gabe Powers, Kojo, Hero Canoe. Obviously, this is a big year for him. Caden Curry, George Fitzpatrick, Carson Hinsman, Dallin Hayden, Bennett Christian, Jair Brown, Kai Stokes, Ryan Turner, Avery Henry. Obviously, he beat cancer, thankfully. And then in the portal, we got Chip Trainum, Tanner McAllister, Parker Lewis. So I mean, it was that. I mean, for the way we've been recruiting recently. And again, that was the number 4 class in the entire country. So, are there guys that can step in and be better? Of course. But, I mean, it's year 3 for a lot of these guys. But if you throw Davis and Igbinosin in that class, then, it looks a little bit better. But I mean, I think that when, Devin's your quarterback and they got to figure out, is Devin the guy or not? That's tough. And is this year we didn't get a running back? We didn't even sign a running back. This is the Mark Fletcher year, right? No, we got Dallin. Excuse me, we got Dallin. The next year was Mark Fletcher year. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. And again, you're not always going to bat 1,000, but the thing about Brian is he followed up Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka with this class, and then the next year he got Ennis and Tate and just another ungodly class, and then he got JJ the next year. So that's still better than anybody's ever done in the history of recruiting. So, I guess if anyone gets a mulligan, it's Brian. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, one, I mean, look, recruiting is an inexact science. And so anytime you're looking at a small sample size, like a recruiting class for wide receivers in 1 year of 3 or 4 guys, there could be a variety of reasons why you flame out. It could be, mental, it could be physical, it could be injuries, it could be talent, whatever it is. Second question is, I'd have to really examine who were the other alternatives, who were the other, possible wide receiver candidates. Is it possible that it was a down class or down year recruiting class for wide receivers? 3, you pointed out aptly, they're in a really talented room. So sometimes it's just a lack of opportunity. It's not so much the guys are bad as a lack of opportunity, but I mean, recruiting's hard. It's hard. As good as Brian is, no one's perfect. And that's why when you look at these classes, typically, I think the breakdown typically is for a great class is like if 30% are solid contributors and 30% are good players, or that's considered to be a really good recruiting class. That one was certainly a little bit below average, and you have those from time to time, but that's, and again, not to go back in the Wayback Machine, but that's what makes that, I think it was the 2003 class that we broke. It was 2002, the 2002 class. The 02 class, which was, 85%, huge contributors. You just don't get classes like that very often, and that's why
Yeah.
we remember them, fondly. And then we had the Burt Carton class of 2003 that almost broke down the program, man.
Terrible.
So
It was trash. I mean, and the funny thing is, like, we were trash. We had Dante Whitner went 8th overall, which was crazy. And then we had Ashton got drafted after 3 years. Should have stayed for his last year because he cost himself some money. Gonzo went first round. So it's funny, like, we see how bad the class was. Because again, I first admit our class sucked, but we still had 2 first rounders. So I mean, compared to a lot of recruiting classes across the board, across college football, like, that's still not bad at the top end. The bottom end was just atrocious. I mean, and the crazy thing is how fast those guys evaporated within the first 8 days or the first 8-9 months. Where, dude, like, it was just guys were getting kicked off the team, guys were failing drug tests, guys were getting arrested, and it was just like, again. It was very eye-opening for me, Mr. Young Bobby Buckeye. What always dreamed of being a Buckeye, and these guys all. It's funny, these guys all come in together, and they're all boys, and they all love each other, and they're all, we're all going to be best men in each other's wedding, and then all of a sudden, reality sets in, and some of these guys, after the first year, never see them again, because again, it's what it is, and again, and some of those guys, the more I get to know them, the less I want to be around them anyway. So it was great. Sean Rollins, what is up, brother? Thank you for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thank you for the 10. Good evening, Scoop family. Thank you to all the service members in the chat for what you've done and do. Thank you to all of our Pay It Forward members as well. We still signed up a couple more. It was interesting. I actually talked to a first responder, came to the event. You can reveal yourself in the chat. And I'm going to have a call with him to talk about what else we can do to help some first responders. So I'm very, very excited about that. I think it's going to be fantastic. Again, we appreciate you guys that keep our country moving forward in a great direction. So thank you for all you guys do. Nevada, your thoughts. Sean Rawlings says, good evening, Scoop family. Thank you for all the service members in the chat and what you've done and do. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Sean, for your generosity, and thank you to all the military and first responders. I don't think people say thank you enough. We try to do it all the time on the show to make up for people that maybe don't do it enough. But we really appreciate it. Growing up in a military family, that's just the way that it was, and it's always been kind of shocking to me that everybody doesn't feel that way, but we certainly feel that way here, and we're glad you guys are part of it.
I agree. And Kyle, I don't know if you're watching right now, but if you're around tonight, we can get that call in, get it done. Tonight would actually be a good night to do it. So I sent you a note. So go ahead and reply to that and let me know if tonight works. Indelible City. This is going to be a Nevadabuck question. Thank you for the 5. Can you give a scouting report of Kirk Barton versus Burke Carton? Nevada, I'll let you do that since you made up Burke Carton as your alias when you were checking into places out west. But what are your thoughts on your scouting report?
Well, like I said, Kirk Barton, it just depends on which Kirk Barton you're talking about. You're talking about Kirk Barton, circa 2004, 2007, was just a bad man. And now he's just a big soft pudding pop, big old cuddly bear. Burt Carton still's got that edge, drives the monster truck, tough guy, the guy you don't want to mess around with. But Kirk Barton's driving the minivan, taking the kids to soccer practice and stuff like that, bringing the cupcakes, and he's kind of a stranger to me now. But every now and then, the old Kirk Barton reveals himself and rears his head up, and we're all good to see it, but not enough, man. I'm telling you what, this soft Michigan-loving guy, I don't know what happened to that mean old 74 that's roaming the right tackle spot that used to take guys' knees out in practice. Now he's like complimenting Michigan, wishing them all the best. And I want you to be really good, guys. And the funny thing is, like, Kirk, no matter how often you suck up those Michigan fans, they're not going to like you. You know that. They're never going to be your buddies. You understand that, don't you?
Oh, I know. There's certain segments of of areas that no matter what we do, they will always hate us, which is good because I would rather that they hate us than they just fake like us and talk behind our backs. I'd much prefer to be hated. I'm just being honest with you. But
you wear the black. That's why you wear the black.
I wear the black because I sweat too much, and then all the people that had to get photos with me at that thing, they're like, I had people like, hey, let's get a big photo. Like, ew, and I'm like, oh my god, my mom's crappy genetics rearing their ugly head. But I apologize. I was hosing myself down in cologne. I did smell good, even though I was a sweaty mess. But yeah, next time I'm gonna have to do it. The next meetup, I'm gonna have to do like the little photo op thing inside their freezer, like next to the frozen chicken wings.
Yeah. If we have any doctors out there, there's got to be something they can prescribe for this guy sweating all the time like that. There's got to be something. So like, put that there in the chat. Put that in, see if you can
vodka tonics.
that could work.
Vodka tonics, the click bar. Ohio 7715, thank you for being an ultra member, and thank you for the 50. I appreciate you, Devin. I hope Cujo as well. Everybody in the entire universe wants you to get to one of these meetups. I think you guys will die and go to heaven when you and Akeem get to one of these, because it is hilarious and it is fun. And Queen Doreen running around talking to everybody, it was absolutely awesome. So the meetup was still like, I mean, literally, it was almost a week ago, and I'm still like, when should we do the next one? Because again, everybody's talking and they're ready, so I'm excited about that. Appreciate you, man. Kirk, Nevada. Appreciate y'all doing the show every night. Much love. Best chat in the land. Family in the chat is the best. Any thoughts on Savion Washington, the O-line from Colorado, originally from Ohio, 6'8", 340. Film is not bad. Nevada OH. God bless, man. I just, I was reading about him today, and I mean, their O-line was so bad last year at Colorado. And again, like the funny thing is with Coach Prime is that he he's, I was a point I really like Deion, but he's so full of trash when he talks about stuff that I can't buy into it anymore. And it's like the way that he runs his program, like there's a reason why Charles Kelly, who worked at Alabama and Georgia and was Florida State, not Georgia, excuse me, he was Bama, Florida State. He's like a DC, like he ran for the hills. Sean Lewis ran for the hills. Like all of these guys that are veteran NFL guys that have real options are running for the hills. So, would Savion Washington be a guy on our radar? I don't think so. I don't think he's good enough. He was a 3-star guy, played at St. Vincent St. Mary. He's huge, but is he good? And I just don't think he's good. I mean, he's a big, slow-footed dude. Like we need, again, if you're gonna, here's my thing, and I say this every time we talk about transfer portal, because sometimes like I think that people are just obsessed with whoever, and I'm just gonna put his St. Vincent St. Mary tape on real quick. People are kind of always obsessed with something that they don't have. Okay, so we don't have this kid. He's 6'8", he's 340, he's enormous. But again, versus like really, really quick, athletic offensive lineman, can he pass protect? Will he be better than Josh Fryer? And then if you bring this kid in, is he going to be, does that push Tegra into the portal? Does that push Fitzpatrick into the portal? Does that push someone else? And maybe you're like, well, I don't care. Those guys think, well, I think they're better than this kid is. This is my opinion. But again, this kid, he's big, he's heavy-footed. He's nowhere near, he runs over, he knocks Mark Pantoni on the ground, which any of you guys, I mean, Doreen could do that if she was playing left tackle. But I just think that just because he's 6'8" and 340 pounds, this guy's nowhere near the athlete that DeJuan Jones was. Nowhere close. Not even in the same galaxy. And I just, he's project all the way. This is a guy, if we would have taken this kid out of high school, they would have rained down hellfire and brimstone. If Greg Studewa would have taken this guy or Justin Fry would have taken this guy, they said 3-star special, 3-star tackle, 3-star Ohio, stiff, whatever. But he goes out to Colorado and he's with Coach Prime. So I don't know. Like I don't think I think that if you're gonna go take a kid in the portal and upset the chemistry of the offensive line room, he better be like damn good. He better be like Caleb Downs, where when that guy shows up, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's why we took that guy, or Quinshon Judkins or whatever. Because again, I can get down with that. Like if I'm an offensive lineman and they bring in some star guard or some star tackle, as long as he ain't taking my spot, because he ain't gonna beat me out, I promise you. But if they brought in another guy and he's good, I'm good with it. Bring in Caleb Downs, I'm great with it. You bring in some guy that's a turd, you bring in a Vic Cutler, because this guy's a lot closer to Vic Cutler than anything else. This is a guy that, I watched Vic Cutler's film, and I thought it was a joke that we took that kid. And then we took him, and then we paid him a couple $100,000, and I was like, I would fire whoever recommended that. I'd fire, or I'd make them just take it out of their salary. So you're going to give that guy $200,000 of our money, then it's coming out of your end when he doesn't make it. But that's just me. But I don't know, Nevada. Interesting thought, just because he is from Ohio, he's from Akron. But again, like if we take this kid out of high school, I could already see the message boards like literally burning themselves down in the middle of the in the middle of like the commitment ceremony. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a couple of comments and a question for you. What I had heard, and I hadn't watched Colorado all that closely last year. I mean, just kind of sporadically because I was just kind of watching for the clown show. But the narrative was that the Colorado offensive line was actually doing pretty well, and then he got hurt, and then the offensive line kind of went to heck in a handbasket. Is that accurate, Kirk, or do you know if that's accurate or not?
I mean, I watched them last year. I mean, even when they were good, like when they beat TCU or whatever, like they still weren't very good. And and they stink this year too. So it's like, why would this guy be leaving? Excuse me. I don't know. I again, like he's got a Rutgers offer right now. I don't see Bama kicking the door in for this kid. I don't see Georgia kicking the door in for this kid. I don't see, again, I always, sometimes like if my eyes deceive me, I can check and see, well, who's offered him? Because maybe I'm just blind. Maybe I worked out too hard. Maybe I hit my head on the Stairmaster today or something. And Alabama and Georgia and Clemson are on this kid, but he's got like a Rutgers offer right now. Like, he kind of fits like a Rutgers guy, like nice kid. Again, I'm not trying to denigrate the kid, but I'm just saying, like, if you're going to bring in a kid for Ohio State and you're going to have to pay this kid money, he better be like damn good. And he can't be this big, heavy footed, guy that can't redirect. Because, I mean, Jack Sawyer would take this guy to church about every single down if he won against him. So would JT, so would Kenyatta and Caden. I mean, this guy wouldn't touch Caden Curry. I'm just saying. So, I don't know. But again, like, prove me wrong. Because again, I don't know how you pass on Carter Smith. And again, I agreed with passing on Carter Smith because I don't think you can punish Tegra and George Fitzpatrick and the guys that you took over Carter Smith because they were behind Paris and DeWand. Carter, or last year when you had Josh Fryer and you had Josh Simmons, and if Tegra or George Fitzpatrick went to Indiana, they would have done the same thing Carter did. They'd have been freshman All-American tackle. Which again, being a freshman All-American on the offensive line, it's awesome. It's great. Like I was a freshman All-American, but like if you go around and look at all the teams and all the depth charts, there generally aren't many freshmen at all that play on any college team. So, if you just play, you're probably going to be an All-American on the freshman All-American team because there's like 10 guys in the country that play as freshmen and start like I did. But I think that this kid, I don't know. Like I worry about guys that, he's already portaled from Kent State to Colorado, and now he's in the portal again. So that's like that's a huge red flag to me because he's probably going to come here. He's not going to start, and he'll be in the portal again next December, and we'll be $150,000 or $200,000 lighter in the wallet. all for the pleasure of having a guy that frankly can't play on our team. So again, he was a Kent State guy out of high school. That seems about right. And again, that's not me being negative, but I mean, I watched the film, and when you're a MAC school, like those are the kind of guys you got to take. I mean, his offers coming out were Kent State, Akron, and Bowling Green. So did he all of a sudden jump up to be Ohio State level? I mean, he was rated the 188th tackle in the country coming out of high school. So, generally the guys that we take are usually in the top 30, top 40 at most. He was 188. So he was the 91st best player in the state of Ohio. This is according to 247. So again, is that the Bible? No, but I don't see it, and I don't think that we're gonna have any interest in this guy. Nice guy. I mean, he's an Akron kid. Obviously, I'm gonna root for a 330 kid. Like, I mean, I'm from Canton, but I don't think he's an Ohio State material type guy. So, and I'm welcome to differing opinions on that, but I've watched enough film of guys, and if he becomes a big time pass blocker, then you guys can all come back and say, Kirk, we told you so. You're a big dum dum, and I'll be like, I'm completely good with it, because I'll say I miss on this kid, but I've seen the big heavy footed guys before, and in modern football, where pass protection is the absolute most important trait in evaluating an offensive tackle, like, you can't have a guy like that unless you want your quarterback to go to the infirmary. When you play Akron and Western Michigan, that doesn't matter. When you play real teams, you got to have a guy that can pass block. Which again, that's why, I was waiting for someone to pass block better than Josh Fryer, so Josh could go and play guard where he wants to play, and nobody did it. So Josh is probably going to be our starting right tackle this year, unless some secret boss enters the portal and we take him. Edward Harris, thank you for the 5. I was sitting next to a guy at the spring game that was convinced Tegra Tshabola was the answer at right tackle. What say you? Nevada, I just had a long diatribe. Do you want to take a crack at this first?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's real simple. I'm not going to, dazzle you with offensive line babble. I think Tigres is better suited at guard. I personally don't think that he has the feet or the movement skills or the fluidity to play tackle. I don't think Tigres sees it that way. I think Tigres sees his future at tackle at the next level. And I personally, I'm not sure if he can play guard, but I'm fairly certain he can't play tackle. So that's my honest assessment on him. If I was him, I'd move him inside. There's a right guard spot that's open right now with Josh Fryer at right tackle. I'd put him at right guard, and I think his only chance to see the field ever at Ohio State is on the interior line. And that's not banging on him. That's just my honest opinion of where he best fits. But again, far be it for me to answer that. We've got the great All-American right tackle here that even though despite that he was on a long diatribe before, this is kind of a fastball for you. So what says you, All-American tackle?
Well, I think Tegra's got to figure out if he wants to be a good player or not. Like, does he want to be good, or do you just want to be a guy that shows up and goes through the motions and isn't real tough? And again, like I've seen a million Tigres before. They fool guys that are dumb, like these recruiting analysts that have never played football. They look like they're stricken with leprosy when they show up. They look like they're about to die. Those guys generally can't evaluate offensive line. So the Tegra I thought was rated way too high. And again, this is not pure haterade. It's just like the big heavy-footed guys. He was heavy in high school. He's lost some weight because, again, you can't play as heavy as he is, not on the outside, unless you're enormous. Like DeJuan, I still think DeJuan's too heavy. I think DeJuan needs to lose some weight just for the length of the season. Now, DeJuan is a monster. He's a massive kid. I'm really excited to see how he does without Bill Callahan, because, I mean, that's going to be the telltale sign for me, because he was drafted into the dream scenario of Bill Callahan as his line coach. Bill Callahan is the most no-nonsense coach in the NFL for the O-line, and that's exactly what DeJuan needed. He needed a guy that was going to have him in a chokehold for his entire rookie season to make sure that he couldn't, get lazy. He actually made him get down in a three-point stance. I was like, praise Jesus. They finally made him get in a three-point stance. But Tegra, there's times he doesn't know the plays. I can tell it just because I've watched enough film that I can tell that he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't stick to guys in pass pro. He can't play tackle, which is, again, I've said that for 2 years now. He can't play tackle. And then they slide him out. They literally were trying him at tackle. They're trying like crazy to get him to be competitive at right tackle this spring. And he was so bad in pass protection that they had to move him back into guard. And he doesn't want to play guard. He wants to play tackle. So it's this like conundrum right now where he wants to play tackle, but he's not good enough to play tackle because, again, I said it before, I'll say it again. You guys are very smart people that listen to the show. You're the smartest Ohio State fans by far in the entire galaxy because you listen to the show. If you cannot pass protect in Ryan Day's offense, you can't play. You're going to get our quarterbacks killed. And Tegra on the edge is terrifying. I mean, that's riding the roller coaster with no seatbelt on. And as soon as you hit that first cell, you're going to go flying off into the ether. So, Tegra, I think he has a shot at guard if he embraces it. But he's got to like become like a grinder and a pro. Like, I mean, he's not a worker. And again, like I talk to a lot of people, and I get all kinds of opinions about all kinds of guys, but his are all pretty much the same. Does he want to turn it on and go be great? Or does he just kind of want to go through the motions? And again, like playing at Ohio State isn't for everybody. It really isn't. I mean, there's a lot of people that they dream of doing it, but it's one thing to show up and just like wear the jersey, jog across the field, stand there, go get your smoothie after the game, go hug your parents. And then it's another thing to like be like damn good. And that takes a different level of work ethic, intensity. You can't just be a minimalist. And again, those guys, I mean, again, and I wasn't the most popular guy in the world, and I'm glad for that because a lot of the people that don't like me sucked. And a lot of the people that they're like, oh, he's too intense, he's too wild, whatever. Well, like it's because there's a standard, and the standard is very high. The standard is I'd go eat lunch with John Hicks. John Hicks, multiple major awards, multiple time All-American. That's the standard. And again, I think that part of the history is lost a little bit because, again, a lot of these kids are national. And I totally get with where Ohio is in the overall realm of high school football. You can't just take all kids from Ohio anymore like we used to. So I think you lose a little bit of this is what the standard is. I mean, I learned the standard from talking to John Hicks and guys that played for Woody Hayes and Jack Tatum when he came around for the Michigan game. I talked to him after practice. Like those are the guys that teach you the standard. And honestly, like I don't know if there's a guy in that room that really will hold guys accountable in a confrontational way. And again, I'm not saying you got to always go around and just have a boner for everybody, but I'm just saying like you got to. Some of these guys need to step up and like say, "Hey guys, this is our last ride." Now on defense, I know that there's some guys that are going. Jack Sawyer is not going to put up with what happened. Like, some of these guys, they're coming, and they're not going to put up with it. Now I don't know who those guys are on offense, especially in the offensive line room. So that's something because Tegra, I mean, he needs a swift kick like bad because. You're going to need Tegra. I mean, he's one of our top 8 guys. He's probably our number 4 tackle right now, if I had to guess, just off of what I've seen, who I've talked to, the spring game. Tegra on cue gave up a sack in the spring game on the edge, just like I said he would. Because there's days Caden Curry was eating his lunch in practice. And again, I like Tegra. I wish I had Tegra's talent. I probably would still be playing in the league right now, but I'm not. But he's got to lock that thing in because he could be as good as he wants to be, but right now he just doesn't want to be really good. So, and again, whoever was sitting next to you and saying that he's the answer at right tackle, he would be in flames on every major message board because every year there's a couple guys on offense and defense that are the whipping boys. And I mean, if guys give up sacks and guys can't pass protect, those are always great candidates. And if you put in a guy that can't pass block and our quarterback gets killed or our offense can't function, those are the guys that the fan base absolutely hates. So I don't know. Like I said, I like Tegra. I think he, I don't know. I think that he's got a lot of upside, but he's got to turn up this summer, man. This is a big summer for Tegra. This is year 3. You're not a freshman. You're not a sophomore anymore. This is year 3. You're a junior. You should be in the conversation to start. And I don't think the coaches trust him enough to play him right now. not as a starter. And shout out to David DePresco. I got a nice text message right now. Buckeye Scoop Ultra member. Appreciate you, my man. I'm glad that you know my boy Melvin Fowler. Melvin is the best. There's a little group text that came through on my iPad, so I appreciate both you guys. Well, Nevada, good show tonight. Do you have any rebuttal to my Tegra thoughts?
No, I think you're spot on. I think, it's one of those things where, I guess it's hard for me to really understand when you have players or people that are faced with kind of a choice where you've got the physical makeup, the physical gifts to create generational wealth and fame and fortune for yourself, but you're not willing to put yourself in the well. You're not willing to, push yourself to that point or whatever it is to kind of get there. I guess I don't understand that kind of thinking. And, we've all seen these guys, we've seen people that are there that for whatever reason just don't get it over the line. And, sometimes the light goes on at different points. And I hope it does for you because, like you said, he's insanely talented and we need him this year because it's going to be a long season. And there's plenty of playing time to be had if he can kind of get it together. So I'm rooting for him, and I hope he puts it together, and I hope he has a big 2024 and goes on and makes a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And again, like that was like one of the things that this summer I talked about. Like I talked to Elfline about this. I talked to Court Lindsley about this. Like, when you're an Ohio kid, you grow up a Buckeye, and everyone in your town's a Buckeye. Like, you have that extra like drive that you do not want to be a bust. Like I'm telling you that it sounds crazy, it sounds weird, but like that was something that I was like, did you guys ever have that like thing where it's like you don't want to be the guy that is the bust? You go home to your hometown and he never should have got the offer. Oh, he didn't deserve it. Oh, he went down there but never played. Because I had a guy from my high school, Ray Harris, who was my high school coach always reminds me he was way better than I was, and John Cooper flew his helicopter and parked it on the practice field during a game to watch Ray Harris play. And Ray was I think he was in Orlando Pace's class actually. And they were the two Ohio first team tackles on the Ohio team or whatever. But whatever. So it's like, but Ray, Ray got down there and it was too big for him. And again, great player, much better high school player than I was, but you don't want to be a guy that peaks in high school. And there's a lot of guys that get to Ohio State and they peaked in high school. Like they get to Ohio State and it's too big for them. They're not good enough. Again, I played with some guys that they got down there and they sucked. Like they just weren't what they were cracked up to be. And it was, it's kind of interesting because, especially back in the olden days when there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't Huddle film, and you'd never seen some of these guys. All you'd ever read was how great they were. And then they show up and they stink. So, I think that the driving force sometimes is, it's got to come internally, but I don't think peer pressure is a bad thing, especially when guys are underachievers, and especially in a long season where you're going to need you need a lot of bodies this year, man, a lot of bodies. This is like a siege warfare, man. This is like, you need a lot of people ready to go because this is going to be a long drawn out process, for the season. So, final thoughts, Nevada. I'll wrap the show up.
No, just a great show. Appreciate everybody showing up. As always, I hate begging for likes, but likes are so helpful for us. Give us a like on the way out the door. And if you like this podcast and you're wondering, what am I going to do with the other 22 and a half hours of my day? come join us at BuckeyeScoop.com. We've got a great, unbelievably active website. We break everything first on there. We'll discuss it on the podcast, but if you want it before we discuss it on the podcast, that's where we break it. So BuckeyeScoop.com, come join us there and kind of get your full, complete Ohio State experience. And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Yeah, as always. Again, appreciate you guys. Thank you to the Wrench crew led by Devin, Tora, Kimmy. I hear the kids are up here, so they're getting cleaned up right now. Obviously, I'm sure they stink. So it's just bath time because I can hear them right down the hallway. But I appreciate you guys, as always, keeping it nice and clean. Thank you to the regulars, Doreen, Steely, Sean Rollins. You guys are always in here. ZZM, appreciate all you guys, as always, kicking it each and every night. In the comments, when do you guys want to have the next meetup? This is a democracy. I love hearing your feedback. Obviously, I love you guys. I had a blast meeting all of you guys. It was an absolute blast. Andy Jo Taylor and her family were amazing. Singing the anthem was amazing. It was all great. It was a great day. The weather was amazing. I think the weather being nice really helped out the event as well. But let me know. I'd love to see you guys again soon because it's fun. But I appreciate you guys as always. So again, if you enjoy the content, please leave us a like. The likes are huge. Click subscribe if you've not subscribed yet. And also click the little alert bell so you guys get an alert every time we go live. So again, shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. Shout out to my Southern Ohio boys. You're going to get down to Southern Ohio and do a meetup down there. That'd be awesome. Got a late super chat. I always love these at the buzzer. I think you guys see these the best with me. Buckeye Steve, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for the 5. We all appreciate you guys. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like again, I appreciate everybody that kicks it. It's kind of like a fun time of the night where everyone's kind of done with dinner. They can kick it and chat a little bit, talk, ask questions, learn about what's going on with Ohio State football today. So I appreciate you guys. Again, it's always awesome. The chat is crazy. Oh, Donald and Karen, I got your jersey, so I will get that signed and returned to you tomorrow. So I appreciate you for shipping that up. Again, yeah, I hope you wrote what you wanted on the inscription. If not, I'll just see what my standard is. But I just appreciate you guys so much. Again, the show's awesome. It's been a godsend, and it's fun at getting everybody together each and every night because I know you guys love kicking it and having a good time in the chat. So appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. The weekend's here, so I will see you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great Friday. Go Bucks.